You are welcome to HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. R. Kelly's lead attorney Jennifer Bonjean spent the largest part of her submission during the New York appeal educating the appeal judges on what the term RICO enterprise actually means, and what the intention of its framers was versus the interpretation that the trial judge Ann Donnelly and her team of jurors applied. According to attorney Bonjean, there was no evidence of an illegal enterprise and R. Kelly should therefore be acquitted on these charges, and his sentence cut down by the 20+ years that this wrongful conviction came with. It's amazing to learn that there is no single definition of RICO anywhere on the web or in books that teach the laws of this land, where the word enterprise is not accompanied by the word criminal or illegal. Meaning that the enterprise that was targeted for punishment was a criminal or illegal one, and not just any enterprise that is engaged in its mandate of doing legal business. Important to note is that for any enterprise or organization registered as a legal entity or not to qualify as criminal or illegal, it must be rooted in criminality, and this is exactly what Bonjean's argument has been since the appeal process started with the submission of written briefs. However, to everyone's surprise, the trial judges who handled the case against R. Kelly do not seem to understand this, and instead chose to punish acts alleged to have been committed by R. Kelly as an individual under the RICO statute, only because he was a member of a legal organization that was engaged in the promotion of his music business. And they are punishing it only because it was a registered entity, and not because it was embedded in criminality, which should be the case before applying RICO charges. Sadly, as we try to understand what could have caused the trial judge and her jury of 12 to forget the criminality that the enterprise must be rooted in, one of the appeal judges who was the loudest during the New York session also seems to believe that all that was required to apply RICO was an enterprise and not one criminal in nature. And because of his belief, he kept interrupting Jennifer Bonjean's submission and rebuttal, suggesting that once there was an enterprise, which was R. Kelly's music management team, and an alleged criminal who in this case is defendant R. Kelly, the RICO charges were justified. While his job was to listen and learn, he was tempted to issue his own interpretation of the matter and stated that the enterprise refers to any legal entity such as a partnership, cooperation or association, then non-legal entities that may also meet the definition. And then he confidently asks whether Bonjean thinks that was a wrong instruction. Now listen.
Yes, it has to. Yes, an enterprise has to be demonstrated. An enterprise is defined as an entity, legal or not legal, that has purpose, structure, and form.
Right, and
history.
I'm sorry?
And history.
Yes, and one of the elements of the structure for an association, in fact, enterprise, is a common purpose.
Right, but not an illegal common purpose.
Well, I mean, then we are, again, this is a new approach that would...
I don't think so. I mean, again, you didn't object to the jury instructions.
I didn't try. I didn't represent Mr. Kelly at trial.
No, I mean,
point out.
not you personally, right?
What he doesn't realize is that what he described was indeed the definition of an enterprise and not a criminal one. And in fact, the instruction spoke of what an enterprise is and did not mention the word criminal anywhere. If the enterprise must be criminal though, then it must have a common illegal purpose, and this is what the RICO Act is intended to punish. Not simply an enterprise with a criminal, but a criminal enterprise with individuals operating with a common illegal purpose. If anyone has understood this explanation, kindly leave us a comment below explaining what you have understood such that everyone else can learn from this, including the judges themselves. Why would a judge even imagine that RICO targets the legitimacy of organizations as opposed to whether they are rooted in crime or not? It's like the judges are suggesting that if a staff of a big corporation who packed his boss's bag every day was not aware that the Hummer in the boss's bag was used for breaking into stores around the city and burglarized them, once his boss is caught and indicted, he should be charged with RICO, even if he broke into these stores and committed the burglaries alone. What the judges are failing to understand is that there is no RICO enterprise without members, and I do not see how this staff who simply packs his boss's bag becomes a member of the alleged RICO enterprise, for he was just doing his job. In fact, Bonjean did raise concern that in case we decided to go with the trial judge's definition of a RICO enterprise as being an organization with a criminal in it, This would mean that every organization in this country which has ever had a criminal among them can as well be regarded a RICO enterprise. And with this standard, we would be right to define the government as the biggest RICO enterprise of all times, equally punishable by law. After all, just the other day, the governor of New York City, Andrew Cuomo, was found to have used his position in government and his recruitment assistance to sexually harass young women that he employed in his office. Considering he is part of the U.S. government system, then it qualifies as a RICO enterprise according to the understanding of this one appeal judge and the trial judge Ann Donnelly. This would actually cause a huge judicial crisis, as multiple companies can be taken down and government impeached. These judges ought to realize that the RICO statute was enacted to crack down criminal enterprises and not just legally registered and non-registered entities with alleged criminals in them. Also, the target was to combat organized crime, something which the case against R. Kelly does not represent in any way. Meanwhile, what seems to be confusing everyone is the jury instruction, which according to the appeal judge only suggested that the government must provide proof of enterprise and not necessarily proof of a criminal enterprise. According to Attorney Bonjean, however, this is the standard jury instruction from previous RICO-related cases but does not necessarily exempt the government from proving that this established enterprise was criminal in nature. She even goes on to give an example of the Boyle versus United States case, where the government was reminded about the importance of the common illegal purpose to substantiate a RICO enterprise. It's actually difficult to understand why such a simple matter could be proving so difficult for qualified judges to understand, yet so simple. Just because the jury instruction says proven enterprise doesn't make it the only thing to prove to justify RICO. In fact, before anyone proves an enterprise was rooted in crime, they must begin by proving it existed as an enterprise in the first place, and so it's not wrong for the jury instruction to ask that an enterprise be proved. But again, the government has to show that this enterprise eventually turned criminal and therefore must prove the common criminal purpose. Interestingly, Jennifer Bonjean during her submission did make sure to remind the appeal court judges that if they don't get it, the Supreme Court will get it. And indeed, her argument ought to be taken seriously, because if the appeal court misses it, simple as it is to understand, we can be sure the Supreme Court will not miss it. According to Don Brown, this case against R. Kelly seems to be a racketeering activity in itself. It is in fact more of a RICO matter than the alleged crimes by the R&B king. These are a group of enterprises working together to ridicule the defense of an innocent man as non-substantial and have him locked up for the rest of his life for what? For allegedly falling in love with some schemers whose only goal was his extortion. Why does this sound like a RICO matter? These are multiple enterprises with many actors having a common purpose to lock up an innocent man. Government involved, Sony, the BOP, and now the DOJ as well. Free R. Kelly. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.